is because they feel it's overdrafted and there's some shallowness at the commons. Okay, sure.
What?
So I know. So if you're going to avoid white, okay, well, what's the plan otherwise, right? So they like blue and they like black. They love the interaction that black does provide in murder, which some people don't like a ton in this format. Extract the confession and slice from the shadows. So they like just having interaction, and then of course they like card advantage with cards like Deduce and Cold Case Cracker and Fairy Snoop. So basically they're happy to try to play a little bit of a longer game if they can draft a deck that allows them to do so. They like 5-color control because they can take the multicolored bombs that other people can't take when they're opening a pack. If they're white X, obviously, if you're 5-color, you can kind of take whatever you want to if your mana's pretty good. So they like the ability to open themselves up in packs 2 and pack 3. And then if they can, they're happy to be blue-black control. They're happy to be base blue-green, splashing a 3rd and or 4th color if their mana is good enough, and those are shells for 5-color control. And lastly, because Morphs are X2s, even though they have a disguise here in this format for 3 mana, they're lower than others on cards like Project Inspector, Inside Source, and other things that are kind of 3 mana, make an X2, get killed by Shock, so on and so forth. So, unsurprisingly, that really good team, Team Handshake, who's leading the standings, they have a little bit of a sidestep here this weekend that has worked for them thus far. Again, Jesse Hampton 8-0, Simon Nielsen 7-1, and plenty of other players in that team in a day number 2 of competition. So maybe we're wrong. Maybe white sucks. How about that?
Could be, Cedric. Could be. We're going to find out, though, because it is the draft time here at Pro Tour Murderers at Karlov Manor on day number 2. I'm going to send it on over to Marshall and Monty with the call. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, Maria, and we're here at the booth. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of different opinions about this format. I kind of thought coming in that it was solved-ish and that people all agreed, and that has not been the case. In fact, many completely opposite opinions about the way to approach this format.
Yeah, I think, and we are seeing a bit of a pattern in, you know, some of the better-known limited players. Jean-Emmanuel Depras yesterday, now we're hearing it from Simon and Jesse and Team Handshake, that in these pod plays, in these drafts where you really do have to adapt to what the other skilled players at your table are planning to do, you can't just go in with a I'm going to draft white because it's the best color strategy. You need to be ready, and you need to have thought about, well, okay, I may have to play another color. What does that look like? What does a winning deck in a different strategy look like for me? And the fact that these guys have these plans going in, that shows a lot of towards their preparation.
Absolutely, and we heard from Ethan there as well. He mentioned that in his testing it was similar, you know, where the in-pod play testing had a major impact on how people think. Now we're going to be following along with Jesse Hampton here, and let's take a look at what he picks up. Pack 1, pick 1 here. He's on the same testing team as Simon Nielsen. We heard Simon's approach, and we're going to assume that they, you know, came to similar conclusions.
Yeah, and you know, draft is Jesse's element. Speaking to him at the player party, I asked him, hey, are you going to win the whole thing? He's like, oh, no, I feel good about draft. I'm not going to win the Pro Tour. And he 3-0'd and then 8-0'd. So, you know, going well so far.
Yeah, not too bad. All right, let's see what he opens up here. Pack 1, pick 1.
The rare was a Bone Brute, I believe.
Oh, a Hunted Bone Brute? That card's excellent. I wouldn't be surprised if he took that. I somehow missed it. There it is.
It's nice, it's aggressive, it hits hard, and there's a cost to killing it. This is a nice start to a draft. Black, of course, a lot of people agree it's the worst color, but we've heard they like being blue-black, they like being red-black. So for Team Handshake, this isn't a hard first pick to go with the rare in a color they enjoy playing.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that he would open up a really great white common to kind of see how he would stack those up. But as you saw, the cards he pulled to the front of the pack were all in the blue, green, black trifecta.
Yeah,
so
really.
He's thinking Sultai, which is exactly what Simon told us as well.
Yeah, not many options for him. I think the big question, as we heard Simon talk about, is how high they prioritize fixing on this team, and when does that kick in the draft?
That's right. You saw he had they went this way in that upper pile as well, so that's interesting. That looks like was that a push-pull?
A Leering Onlooker and Extract the Confession in the pack, so a lot of black cards available as options. I love push-pull. Not only is it a removal spell, but pull actually can be quite a beating if you get
kind
to
of a win condition, right? Yeah. There's many times where that card goes on the stack and all of a sudden the game
Concession, yeah, absolutely.
And that he's going to take it here. So push-pull goes into the pile here for Jesse.
Yeah, I think you're definitely seeing not only the preference for black, but the fact that the packs are cooperating. Now, notably, Simon is sitting to Jesse's left.
Oh,
so
really?
It'll be interesting how much he reads the multiple black cards in the pack as signals.
Ooh, there was a Judith there at the very end of the pack. Now, admittedly, the color pair of Rakdos is not one of the most favorite, but Judith is a very powerful card.
Judith is very powerful, and I think the fact that we are seeing a, bomb go third pick here in pack 1 does really speak to the variations in color preferences for different players, because Jesse happy to slam this, but 2 players were not.
Right. And also interesting, you can see how they came to the conclusions they came to. There's been no good white or red cards coming through. No galvanized, no shock, and no good white cards at all.
Yep.
There's the first one there. Let's see what he picks up out of this back. All right, this one looks a little weaker.
There's a Snoop. They said they prioritized it high, but Surveillance Monitor, now that is a powerful uncommon. Big fan of that one. If they feel comfortable going into a third color, which we know they do.
That's right. Yeah, they said that they had preferences for blue-black.
Yep.
Or blue-green with a splash.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 decks that they really kind of zeroed in on as this is where we want to be in the format. So you can see Jesse right now is currently red-black with a blue card. So we'll see, kind of how he ends up.
Yeah, of course, this is early stages, but we also know Jesse will happily take fixing, as that is the handshake way, and then open themselves up to, as they said, whatever bombs they get in pack 2 and pack 3, being able to play them, which is exactly the same strategy we saw Jean-Emmanuel Depras do yesterday, though it didn't go great for him.
That's right. Extract a Confession, and then there's a tempting Gleaming Gear Drake, but maybe he's a little too far down the road to try to go for blue-red artifacts.
I think one of the reasons that he's taking the Confession here is knowing Simon is to his left, maybe trying to dry out black a bit and tell Simon, hey, you don't want to go this way, because that Confession is a pretty big signal if you're getting it that late, 5th pick, 6th pick.
Monty, it's your favorite.
I love Case of the Shattered Pact, and we know how Handshake feels about fixing. If Jesse passes that, I would have been very disappointed.
5 seconds.
And interestingly, that is yet another signal, not going over to Simon about like, hey, you're not going to be able to have free reign. Like, I'm going to be the one who's taking these fixing cards. And one of the benefits to this strategy that Simon told us about was that it leaves you open to all the really good gold cards that you can open in pack 2, pack 3 if you prioritize fixing early.
Speaking of gold cards, Marshall, World Soul's Rage. As close as you can get to a fireball in this format. Hitting any target means that it can be removable if you need it, but also goes to the face. And here we go. This is the payoff for picking fixing, is you get to take these rares.
This is really interesting. So he's actually all the colors right now except for white.
As we saw, again, he's shaping up yesterday. This really does feel like deja vu here in the feature match draft area.
It does. That was an Ansrag's Rampage there, alternate art, and he's got Persuasive Interrogators, also alternate art there in the middle.
Shady Informant, really good black-red disguised creature.
Yeah, I like a Shady Informant. Oh, wow.
That's surprising.
He took Persuasive Interrogators here.
Now, look, I understand wanting to go with a bigger, greedier strategy, but even I'm not that high on 6-drops in this format, and Interrogators is not one that I really have high at all.
This is a nice card to wheel here. He's got the Unscrupulous Agent back, and he solidifies himself even further into black. That seems to be the color that we know 100% that he is. Likely red, but he's got, good little touches into green and blue.
Notably, they went this way, actually wheeled something Jesse was eyeing, not picking in the first pack over the Bone Brute, but eyeing. So the fact that that has wheeled means that this 4 or 5 color lane that Team Handshake likes to draft might be open at the table. Maybe Simon hoping to wheel that and is going to on Jesse's left.
3 cards to your left.
This is pod play here, so Jesse considering, do I want to take card maybe from an opponent, or do I just want to take one that has an outside chance of making it into my list?
Right.
Last 2 cards to your left.
And he ended up taking the Magnifying Glass, which is the latter.
I think that was another Interrogator.
Yeah, well, that's where it normally goes.
Yeah, that is the pick where Interrogators belongs in my personal ranking.
Yeah, well, he's already got 2 of them, so we'll see. Was a little surprised to see him take that highly. So what do you think colors-wise here, Monty? The cards that are kind of standing out are the red-green cards like World Soul's Rage and Riftburst Hellion. They're kind of what are you doing here right now? Because everything else is basically just black-red with the one surveillance monitor.
Even red almost feels like a splash. The only reason it really isn't is the World Souls Rage. It feels like Jesse is firmly in black, and from here he could go black-blue, splashing the red. He could go black-green, splashing the red and the blue. He could be black-red. So there's options, but it does feel like the only thing he knows for sure is that he's pairing something alongside black here.
Pick up 7 counts. You have 15 seconds.
I'm really curious to see what Simon's deck looks like and what signals he takes away from this draft, because these testing teams show up to the Pro Tour early. They usually get a testing house. They do in-house drafts as a team. So they're used to trying to pick up on each other's signals. I'm interested to see whether that will play into this draft portion here, where they are seated next to each other.
5 seconds. Draw.
Pick up the pack. You have 40 seconds.
Pick up 5 counts. You have 10 seconds.
All right, let's see what he picks up here. Undercity Eliminator gets pulled to the front. Is that a slice from the shadows behind it?
I believe so, yeah. I'm a big fan of the Eliminator. Slice, really great cheap removal spell, able to deal with disguised creatures, but the fact that the Eliminator leaves behind a 3/3 in, well, usually, ideally, leaves behind a 3/3 in a format where 3/3 is a pretty decent body size against the cheaper, more aggressive creatures running around, means the Eliminator is one of those cards that, yes, it's a 5-drop, but when it comes down, it can really stabilize you.
Yeah, it's one of the few cards that can lead to a comeback.
Draw.
Exactly.
He also had
Past
Prof's
30
Eidetic
cards to
Memory
your right.
in the pack there, which is a high floor but decent ceiling card, but it looks like he's
Pick up the pack.
very
You have
solidly in
35
black
seconds.
here, and that's kind of the direction he's going to go, and he'll figure out his other colors as it comes around.
Yeah.
Millstone, you want an alternate win con?
All right, that's the second Gear Drake of the draft. He didn't take the first one, but
Yeah.
he did think about it for quite a while before choosing to cement himself in black. I'm interested if he will take this now that there isn't a black card in the pack, given how highly he was prioritizing potentially taking the first one.
Five seconds.
The pack also just really has nothing for him otherwise.
Yeah, there's just not much there at all.
Draft. Shuffle and pass.
You really
12
don't want to be
cards to your
taking
right.
the hot shot there. Second pick in pack 2. That's just not where you want to be. That's a card that usually you can find wheeling.
Pick up the pack. You have 30 seconds.
Marshall, how about a third Interrogators?
I mean, I guess the win condition is fully online at that point. Case of the Stashed Skeleton's very nice, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being a 2-drop, he pulls that one to
He
the
did
back.
notice it. Yeah, it's like
saving
it's
that
on
one
the
for
radar.
later. I think Case of the Stashed Skeleton a bit too good to pass up in this spot, especially
seconds.
considering your curve is, at this point, probably a little higher than you would like. I think you want some of those early plays. The
Draft.
format, regardless
Shuffle
of
and
how
pass
you feel
11
about
cards
white,
to your right.
is fast. We have seen that definitively proven. It's just the argument being made by Jean-Manuel Deprat and
Pick up
Team
the pack.
Handshake and
You
some
have
of these
25
professional
seconds.
players is, despite the format being fast, you can play slow decks.
Can we have 4 of them?
I mean, at the moment, it sure looks like it.
I think he figures he'll wheel one. I mean, he got one late and one literally last pick, so he can pick something else and then just get them back, which is,
5
again, where they
seconds.
normally go in the format.
Yeah, he's eyeing the Undercover Crocodile, but I think that's a little tough
Draft.
on the mana right
Shuffle
now.
and pass 10 cards to
Yeah,
your right.
yeah, you're right, but he's going to take it anyway. I mean, the problem with cards like Interrogators is,
Pick
you
up
know,
the
if you
pack.
just have
You
to
have
straight up
25
pay
seconds.
6 mana for a card, it has to be really, really good, because so many cards are like Undercover Crocodile, where, yeah, you can pay 6 and it's fine, but you can simply play disguised creatures that act as your 6 mana creatures later on, and you kind of get the best of both worlds if you're stumbling on mana or something like that. So for a
5
card,
seconds.
you know, that isn't just straight up excellent, you know, like Incinerator or something crazy, it's really tough sell to
Shuffle
be
and
like,
pass
I'm going
9
to commit
cards
to
to
just
your
only
right.
paying 6 mana for this in a disguised format.
Picking up a complication here is actually really nice.
Pick
This
up the
is
pack.
the
You have
first
20
real piece that he's gotten since that Judith that makes him want to be black-red. So having this unconditional removal here at 3 mana, pretty nice pickup.
Public Thoroughfare is a card that
5
is
seconds.
high on these teams' list. You know, this is the type of thing that you have to play if you're going to be splashing around and
Draft.
trying to leave
Shuffle
yourself
and pass
open to
8
the
cards to your
gold
right.
rares later on in the second and third packs.
Yeah, they've said they like fixing very highly. We saw Jesse
Pick
take
up
the
the
case
pack.
of the Shattered
You have
Pack
20
he saw.
seconds.
Now he takes the first Thoroughfare he saw.
5
We haven't really seen him pass any fixing that wasn't green, and he hasn't been offered an escape tunnel. So far, in terms of pick rate for this common fixing, he's at 100%.
5 seconds.
He took a second to double check Case of the Gorgon's Kiss, but turns out it's still bad.
Still Case of the Gorgon's Kiss, and not
cards to your
suddenly a
right.
Stash Skeleton.
Right,
So,
so
Shady Informant.
Yeah, he's going to take the Shady Informant
Pick
here
up the pack.
instead.
You have 15 seconds.
Guess who's back?
Could run it back.
I mean, I suppose he's just going to take
5
another
seconds.
one.
Yeah,
He is base black.
could consider the Savior here,
Draft.
but
Yeah.
I
Pass 6
think
cards to
the
your
Informant
right.
is a bit more exciting if you're going to be a bit of a mid-range
Pick up the
deck.
pack.
Does
You
feel
have
that
10
way.
seconds.
You love blocking with the Informant where you really don't love blocking with the Sanguine Savior.
5. Draft. Pass 5
And I think he
cards
took
to
Deadly
your right.
Complication out of that pack really quickly.
Yeah, I think our table spotter
Pick
just
up the
trying to
pack.
make
You
that,
have 10
make
seconds.
sure they do that. So that's
I
the
mean,
second complication this pack.
He picked that really quick. He just
Yeah.
windmilled it.
5.
And he's going to take a Rot from Mortipede here. Filler card.
It's a role player.
Could make
Draft.
the cut.
Pass
Yeah,
4
Wouldn't
cards
be
to your
shocked
right.
either way.
It's a 3/4, right?
up the
It is
pack.
a
You have
stat
5
line that
seconds.
you can
There
use.
it is.
All right.
There it is.
All right. This is
Persuasive Interrogators.
Pass 3
Number
cards
3.
to your
okay.
right.
All right. So this is a statement.
Give me
right?
the fourth
back.
one.
Sanguine
have 5
Savior
seconds.
is a very playable card. So taking it here is a statement.
Draft.
Game plan
Pass
acquired, my
2
friend.
cards to
I
your
just,
right.
it's not a game plan I
back.
want, but it's a game plan
5
Jesse's saying he wants.
I'm really curious to see how many of them make the cut.
Yeah.
Like, is he actually going to
Draft
try to
and
build
pass
his
the
deck
last
around
card.
that
You
card,
now
or
have
is it
90
more,
seconds to
you know,
look
maybe
at
he
your
just
card.
likes it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is a big question mark for me. We saw Ben Stark yesterday in his black-red deck. He was playing one copy of the Interrogators. I was confused about it. I wasn't sure how I felt. Now we see Jesse at the end of Pack 2 has 3 copies of the Interrogators for himself. And at this point, one was late, but 2 of them felt like intentional pickups, deliberate pickups. So I really want to see when we get to the end of this draft, what does Jesse's final build look like? Are these Interrogators a game plan? Are they the game plan? Or is this just something that he's speculating on, something that he thinks? Maybe this is a deck that I just haven't thought about that could exist where you build up the clues, get multiple Interrogators down, and just go, sack a clue, you get 6 poison.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. He got them almost for free. Right. So, like, if you only looked at the pick list, it would be like, yeah, he just picked up some random Interrogators late. But body language-wise, he kept pulling them and noticing them, and so we're kind of picking up on that.
Right.
Too. Like, wait a minute, does he actually like these? And he did take that one over a couple of playables.
Right, there's more thought being put into them than you would normally assign to the card, which makes me think more about them now and try to understand what is Jesse thinking in this spot? What is the idea behind this? Because Jesse is a very, very seasoned limited player.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is not some random nonsense. This is a plan,
Okay.
Right.
Please put
potentially.
your cards face
Yeah,
down
Jesse's
in a single
from
pile.
me and Monty's neck of
Open
the
the
woods,
last
and
booster
we've
on
played plenty
screen,
of times
count it
against him
face down,
over the years.
verify it, and
Lost
import
plenty
it.
of times to him
Yeah,
over the years.
He is a beast.
I think going into Pack 3, it's pretty clear that Jesse is black-red now. The blue cards, 2 pieces of fixing. There's a Gear
up the pack.
Drake.
Yeah.
That's not something you really want to splash.
No.
The Surveillance Monitor, I
Yeah,
could get behind.
I could
think
too.
that's an exciting one. Escape Tunnel. yeah,
it goes
right up to the front.
Yep. This pack was fairly weak. I didn't see really anything that jumped out. What
Another
do you
push
see?
pull.
Okay, another push pull. There you go. That's pretty decent.
There's also a case of the Crimson Pulse.
Yeah.
That's a solid one. I don't love it when I'm more of a mid-range deck. You're not really ever emptying your hand, and when you are, you're in a bad spot usually. And let's be clear, this deck is mid-range. This is not an aggressive deck. Jesse has 3 potential 6-drops that he's planning on playing. So push pull,
5
cheap
seconds.
removal, and as we've mentioned, a win condition. I can get behind that one for sure.
Definitely. He took it early in pack 1, and he'll pick it up
Draft.
back
Shuffle
3,
and pass
pick 1
13
here as
cards
well.
to your left.
Good flexibility on that, and again, a win condition for later. So nice pickup for Jesse.
Yeah, you can see it hurt
up
him
the
to
pack.
pass that
You have
escape
35
tunnel. It was the
seconds.
first one he's seen this draft, but I think this is where...
Ooh, Lamplight Phoenix.
Now we're talking.
That's a very nice card. Good on defense, good on offense. Very difficult to get
That's
rid
a
of.
second stash skeleton as well, Marco.
Yeah, that's really good too.
But
as you
know,
mentioned, this highlights what you just said, Monty. You said this is not an aggressive deck,
No.
right? And Lamplight Phoenix, more powerful, but also just more towards the middle end of things. Also, you know, double red on a 3-drop like is pushing him closer and
Yes.
closer to just being straight up black-red.
This card can block. That is big when
5
you
seconds.
need to survive to your 5-drops, to your 6-drops. Getting a Phoenix that comes down and suddenly you've used the push
Shuffle and pass
to
12
kill one
cards
of your
to
opponent's
your left.
creatures. Now you have evidence to collect. That's a tough thing to get through.
Pick up the pack. You have 30 seconds.
All right, let's see what he gets here. There's a Drag the Canal if he does want to dip over. There's also Evidence Examiner.
Yeah, this
These
isn't...
would both be splashes, however.
Yeah, this is interesting because the only card in his colors that I think he would consider playing here is the Toxin Analysis. And he's not really a deck for Toxin Analysis. So usually
5 seconds.
taking the Drag the Canal here, I would think this is a sign he wants to splash blue.
Draft.
But with
Shuffle and
that
pass
pack,
11
I don't
cards
really
to your
think it
left.
tells us anything other than this is a higher upside card that he may end up playing, so he's going to pick it to speculate
Pick
on.
up the pack.
I
You
think
have
he
25
could
seconds.
still be straight red-black here.
Lots of Enzregs, Rampages flying around
I think
the
that's
table.
the third one in this
Yeah.
draft pod, Marshall.
Yeah, there's a Public Thoroughfare, and this is a card that he values very highly for that splashability. I would expect now with that pick, especially this early, this is what
We're
pick
playing
4,
some blue.
the Drag and the Surveillance
5
Monitor
seconds.
are
For
very
sure,
likely
yeah.
going to make the cut. Yeah.
I'm not sold on the Drake, but definitely the Surveillance Monitor and the Drag,
Draft.
I'm in.
Shuffle and pass 10
he did
cards
look at the
to your
Crows
left.
and Tusker, but he's a little too far away from that, unfortunately, for Jesse.
Gotta be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Pick up the pack.
And by the
You
way,
have 25
interesting to
seconds.
note here, just, you know, if you're sitting in his seat, once again, you know, talking about red-white being one of the most effective decks in the format, it has not been open
No.
at
Not
all.
even
Like,
remotely
it's
close.
clear that everybody's fighting for it. This is a tough pick here. Murder, which would go right into the deck no matter what. They really like Murder on this team, but there's also a Hedge Maze if he would like to try to get a green splash going. Is there anything worth it in green that he'd like?
He has that
seconds.
World Souls Rage from pack 1
Yeah.
sitting in his pile. You know, we've been talking about the blue.
You just
Draft.
gotta go
Shuffle
Murder.
and
Yeah,
pass 9
it's
cards
really
to your
tough
left.
to pass up the Murder in that spot. And
Yeah, I'm with Jesse on that one. I get it. He wants to keep that
Pick up the
openness,
pack.
but just
You
a
have 20
nice
seconds.
mid-pick Murder
Yeah.
for him is kind of right where he wants to be. There's another case of the Gorgon's Kiss. He definitely doesn't want. There's a Satchel.
that's an exciting one. I love the Satchel if you're in the blue-red deck.
He
And
likes it too.
he's not even thinking about that one. He is
Yeah.
very in.
5
So,
seconds.
all right, black-red. The blue splash is happening. I think
Yep.
that's pretty clear. With 2 thoroughfares,
Draft.
I
Shuffle
think
and
there's a
pass
good
8
chance
cards
the
to your
green
left.
splash is happening as well. Just get a little greedy. The good news about World Souls Rage, it's not an early play.
Pick up
It's
the
an
pack.
X spell.
You
You
have
want to be
20
using
seconds.
it late. You have time to find those thoroughfares.
Not a ton for Jesse here. He could take Mediocre Removal with Suspicious Detonation, Cryptex, which just hasn't really done the thing.
Yeah, Cryptex
5
is not
seconds.
really a card in the format. Detonation, at least he's picked up a lot of clues over the course now. Yes,
Draft.
some of them are
Pass
stapled
7
onto 6
cards to
drops,
your
but
left.
the clues are in his deck. So, you know, there is
Pick up the pack.
a
You have
reasonable
15
way to get
seconds.
the detonation going in this deck.
Yeah, I think at this point, if I were to predict, I would say he's only going to splash the blue. I think he's got plenty of playables in his core 2 colors
5
of
seconds.
black-red, and I think he has some decent splashes out of blue, and that's probably where he'll land.
Draft. Pass
Silica
6 cards
Stalker.
to your left.
Perfectly serviceable
Yep.
disguise creature in the format.
Pick up the
You and
pack.
I have
You
had
have
a chat
10
about
seconds.
this. I think the baseline for me is if it flips for 5 rather than 6, I'm much happier playing it.
Yes.
If Stalker fulfills that quota.
That was a demand
Draft.
answers
Pass
there from
5 cards
Jesse.
to your left.
Second one of the draft, he got one very late.
Yeah, I'm
earlier
curious
on.
to see if that's a card that
Pick
makes
up
the cut
back.
for
You
him.
have 10 seconds.
Sacrificing an artifact means you can sacrifice a clue if you really need to.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a bit of a more
5.
flexible than we've seen from that effect in the past.
He did take that Gear Drake way
Draft.
back,
Pass
right?
4
Yeah.
You
cards
think
to
that
your
would make
left.
the splash, assuming that blue is the
Pick up
direction
the
he
back.
goes?
You have 5 seconds.
I mean, it comes with a clue and it's an okay card. I agree with what you said earlier. It's
Draft.
not
Pass 3
really
cards to your
the
left.
card you want to splash for, but
Pick up
he
the
is
back, you
definitely
have 5
going to be
seconds.
playing blue, I believe. So if that's the case, do you put the Gear Drake in your deck?
It's tough. I
Draft.
think you
Pass
really
3
have
cards
to
to
look
your
at your
left.
end pile and see how
Pick
many
up the back,
playables you
you have
have.
5 seconds.
Because
30 seconds.
in my personal rankings, if I'm splashing the Gear
Draft
Drake,
and
it's not
pass
my
the last
18th
card.
card, it's my
very
22nd,
much.
23rd card. And
Um,
I think
at
his
this time,
card
we would
quality
like
is
to
pretty
rate
high.
all of your cards have a
Gear Drake
stamp.
is really powerful,
Right.
and it's a card that you are okay playing turn 4 and then sacrificing the clue immediately. So, you know, it has viability, but I think it's one of those cards that maybe you put more thought into the splash for.
Right, where a card like Surveillance Monitor is just like, give me that thing.
Yeah, I'm splashing the monitor. I think
Right.
even the satchel, I'm happily splashing that. That's going to let me survive. I
you've
get
done that
to
with the
use
face
my
monitor.
clues and be developing creatures when you have the satchel down. So I think those are slam dunks.
Yeah, I agree. And the Drag the Canal probably
Yeah,
make the
absolutely,
cut too,
for
just
sure.
just raw power level.
Yeah.
I think the fixing is definitely there for him to get that blue in there. And the question is just how many does he need? Let's find out right now. We actually get to take a look at the deck list that Jesse submitted, and
Gear
there's
Drake is in.
blue.
No
Gear-
monitor.
No monitor, but yes, Gear Drake.
And yes, World Souls Rage. The green made it in.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good call. I did not think he would go for the World Souls Rage there, but he did.
Yeah, notably though, no forest. The only fine and basic effect he has is Case of the Shattered Pact, no escape tunnels. So he's saying that the World Souls Rage, I'm going to cast this later down the line when I have a Thoroughfare. But for the blue, I'm going to play some islands. Case of the Shattered Pact is going to find that fixing for me because this is part of my game plan. And ultimately, the answer for how many interrogators? It's 2.
It's 2, so he didn't go for all of it. He kind of hedged because the Basilica Stalker, isn't necessarily just a 6. So that's kind of cool. You see the Judith there, and I have to say this is a really, really nice Judith deck. Take a look at that money. All those spells down there
Lot of
create
spells.
those really annoying tutus that she can make.
Lot of instants and sorceries, really solid. Yes, it doesn't trigger off of enchantments and artifacts, so there's a few there, the Case, the Extract Confession, the Detective Satchel, but for the most part, that is a large number of instants or sorceries, which means Judith is going to be very strong, especially not the first mode, but creating the imps, that can get out of control. Judith surviving a turn, very much like the Incinerator we spoke about yesterday in JD's draft, that can be the card that comes down, and if I untap, the game is over.
That's right. Yeah. So great stuff here from Jesse Hampton. We're going to have to see how he does in just a minute. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we're going to get a chance to watch this deck in action. Don't go anywhere.